Her hands trembled as she folded the navy blue apron for the last time. After 5 years of serving with a smile, Marta knew that maybe this would be her last day at the small clothing store in downtown Sevilla. Her fingers went numb when she heard footsteps approaching down the creaky wooden hallway. "Welcome back. Tell me what city you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, listen to this story." The scent of orange blossoms drifted through the half-open windows of Tradiciones Andaluzas, a small shop located on a cobblestone alley in the Santa Cruz neighborhood. It was March, and Sevillian spring was awakening with its blend of fragrances that intertwined among the whitewashed walls and wrought iron balconies. Marta Hernandez, 28 years old, arrived every morning at 8 o'clock sharp, half an hour before the official opening, not because they asked her to, but because she needed those 30 minutes of silence to organize the garments, clean the dark wooden counter, and mentally prepare her smile for the day that awaited her. Her routine was as precise as an antique clock. First, she opened the wooden shutters painted in Sevilla green, letting the golden light spill over the hangers loaded with Manila shawls, lace scarves and flamenco dresses hanging like promises of celebration. Then she connected the small radio that broadcast Sevillanas from dawn, and the sound of clapping and guitars filled the 40-square-meter space that had been her refuge for 5 years. Finally, she put on the navy blue apron with the store's embroidered logo, pulled her chestnut hair into a low ponytail, and adjusted the cheap pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. Marta wasn't beautiful according to magazine standards, but she had something that transcended physical beauty, a genuine warmth that flowed from her brown eyes, dark as the Córdoba soil where she had been born. When she smiled, small wrinkles formed at the corners, signs of a life that had chosen to see the good side even on gray days. Her hands, always impeccable despite constant work, moved gracefully when folding fabrics or showing embroidery details to customers. But that Tuesday morning, something weighed in the air like humidity before a storm. Mr. Ruiz, the former 73-year-old owner, had sold the store to a businessman from Madrid about whom no one knew anything concrete. The employees whispered in corners, speculating about mass layoffs, forced modernization, or in the worst case, the definitive closure of the family business that had survived 3 generations. Marta tried not to listen to those conversations that were abruptly cut off when she appeared. She knew her coworkers saw her as a threat. She was the youngest, the most committed, the one who never missed work or was late, who memorized regular customers' preferences and remembered their daughters' birthdays. That dedication, which she considered natural, had become a burden that separated her from the rest. Carmen, the 52-year-old interim manager, had begun treating her with calculated coldness. She no longer asked her to organize inventory, a task that Marta mastered like no one else. Nor did she entrust her with handling the cash register during the busiest hours. It was as if she wanted to demonstrate that Marta wasn't indispensable, that the store could function just as well without her. The first emotional stab came on a Monday morning. Carmen called her to the small back office, where cardboard boxes were piled among faded posters of past collections. The space smelled of old paper and the cheap cologne that Mr. Reese used. "Marta, I need to talk to you," Carmen told her without looking up from some papers she pretended to review. "Things are changing a lot here. The new owner wants efficiency, cost reduction." Marta felt as if they had poured a bucket of ice water on her stomach. "What exactly do you mean? That your position is under evaluation?" "All positions are, but..." Carmen made a dramatic pause, as if savoring the power of those words. "Your salary is the highest among the saleswomen, and lately sales haven't been optimal." It was a lie. Marta knew it. Her sales were the best in the store. Her customers specifically asked for her, and several had threatened not to return if she wasn't there. But she said nothing. She simply nodded, thanked Carmen for her sincerity, and returned to her post with trembling legs. During the following weeks, each day became a test of emotional endurance. Marta arrived with the same punctuality, maintained the same professional smile, and served customers with the same dedication as always. But inside, something had broken. At night, in her small apartment on Calle Feria, she sat on the bed with a cup of chamomile tea in her hands, and wondered what she had done wrong. At the award ceremony, held at Sevilla City Hall, Marta gave an emotional speech that summarized everything she had lived through during that period of transformation. "This award isn't mine. It belongs to all the people who believed in the transformation of power of kindness and respect," she said into the microphone, her voice slightly trembling with emotion. "It belongs to my coworkers, who understood that we are stronger when we support each other. It belongs to our customers, who teach us every day that behind every purchase there's a story, a need, an illusion. And it belongs to my boss, Álvaro Mendoza, who had the courage to bet on people before profits." The audience applauded, but Marta wasn't finished. "For many months I lived in fear. Fear of losing my job, fear of not being enough, fear of the future. But I learned something important, that when we do our work with love and respect, sooner or later that love returns multiplied." Álvaro, sitting in the front row, felt a lump in his throat. He thought of all the times he had made business decisions based solely on spreadsheets and financial projections, ignoring the human element. Marta had taught him that the best results came when people were treated as complete human beings, with emotions, needs and dreams. After the ceremony, Álvaro and Marta walked together through the streets of Sevilla's historic center. The night air was perfumed with the scent of orange trees, and the streetlights created circles of golden light on the cobblestones. "Marta," Álvaro told her as they stopped in front of the cathedral, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. During those weeks when you thought they were going to fire you, didn't you ever feel like giving up? Like treating me badly when I was behaving like an impossible customer?" Marta reflected for a moment before responding. "Of course I felt like it. There were days when I came home crying, wondering why I was trying so hard in a place where apparently they didn't want me. Then why did you keep being kind?" "Because I realized that if I changed my way of being because of external circumstances, in the end the only losers would be the people who really needed my help. Like that lady who was crying because she couldn't buy her daughter the dress she wanted, or Doña Esperanza, who comes to the store not just to buy but also to chat for a while." Álvaro nodded, understanding that he had witnessed something rare, a person who maintained their integrity even in the most difficult moments. "Besides," continued Marta with a mischievous smile, "my grandmother always told me that kindness is like a long-term investment. Sometimes you take a while to see the benefits, but when they come, they're usually much better than you expected." Both laughed, and continued walking toward the store, where Marta wanted to pick up some documents she had forgotten. While she looked for the papers in the office, Álvaro stayed in the sales area, observing the space that had become much more than a simple business. The walls displayed photographs of customers wearing garments bought there, handwritten testimonials thanking the service received, and recognition diplomas awarded by merchants' associations. But what caught his attention most was a thick notebook that rested on the counter. He opened it curiously and discovered it was a kind of diary where Marta noted details about each customer's preferences, their favorite colors, their sizes, the special occasions they usually bought for, even birthdays and anniversaries. "It's my extended memory system," Marta explained when she returned and saw him leafing through the notebook. "At first I did it only for regular customers, but then I realized that all people deserve to be remembered." Álvaro read some random entries. "Mrs. Carmen Ximénez. She likes navy blue, size 42, always comes before Mother's Day to buy herself something new for the occasion. Widowed for 3 years, lives alone but has a daughter in Barcelona who visits her regularly. It's not difficult when you really care about people," Marta responded naturally. "Most people only need someone to truly listen to them." In that moment, Álvaro understood that he had found something more valuable than a good employee. He had found someone who intuitively understood the principles of service excellence and human connection that he had spent years trying to learn in management seminars. A year after that nighttime conversation, Tradiciones Andaluzas had become a reference point in Sevilla. Tourists from other cities came specifically to see the store they had heard about. Commerce students asked permission to make educational visits, and other local businesses consulted Álvaro about his personnel management methods. But for Marta, true success was measured in smaller and more personal moments. Like when Doña Esperanza introduced her to her 7-year-old great-granddaughter and told her, "This is Marta, the lady who always helps me look beautiful." Or when Rocío, already converted to assistant manager, confessed that working in the store had given her back her self-confidence after her divorce. There was also the silent pride she felt every time a new customer entered, and for being served, left with that expression of satisfied surprise of someone who has received more than they expected. The deepest change, however, had occurred in Marta herself. The insecure woman who lived in constant fear of dismissal had transformed into a confident professional who knew her value and wasn't afraid to defend it. She had learned that kindness wasn't synonymous with weakness, and that one could be firm without losing human warmth. One spring afternoon, while organizing inventory with Rocío, she received an unexpected call. It was Carmen, her former supervisor, who had found work in a store in another neighborhood. "Marta, I hope you don't hang up on me," Carmen began with a voice notably different from the one Marta remembered. "I need to talk to you." Marta signaled to Rocío to continue with the inventory and went to the office for privacy. "I'm listening, Carmen. I want to ask your forgiveness for how I behaved toward you. There was no excuse for what I did." The sincerity in Carmen's voice surprised Marta. "What made you change your mind?" "My new job. My boss treats me exactly like I treated you. And I've realized how horrible it is to work in an environment where they don't trust you, where they constantly belittle you." Carmen paused before continuing. "Now I understand the hell I put you through." Marta felt a complex mixture of emotions. Part of her still felt hurt by the months of humiliation she had suffered, but another part felt genuine compassion for the woman who was now experiencing the same thing. "Carmen, I appreciate that you called. Truly. Can you forgive me?" Marta thought carefully before responding. I've already forgiven you, Carmen. I did it a long time ago, for my own peace of mind. But forgiveness doesn't mean that what happened was right or that it didn't have consequences. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I deeply regret everything. After hanging up the phone, Marta remained seated in the office, reflecting on the call. She realized that she had indeed forgiven Carmen, not out of generosity but out of practical necessity. Carrying resentment had been like carrying a heavy backpack that only slowed her down on her journey forward. That afternoon, when Alvaro stopped by the store for his weekly review, Marta told him about Carmen's call. How do you feel about it? He asked her. Relieved, actually. It's as if a painful chapter of my life had been definitively closed. I'm glad to hear you say that. You've changed a lot since I've known you, Marta. You have a confidence now that you didn't have before. Marta smiled. I've learned that my work has value, and that I deserve respect. But I've also learned that to gain respect, first I have to respect myself. Alvaro nodded. In his personal journey as an entrepreneur, he had discovered that the most successful businesses were those where employees felt valued and empowered. Marta was living proof of that theory. I have something to discuss with you, Alvaro told her, while taking some documents from his briefcase. I've been thinking about expanding our store concept, opening a second location in another Sevilla neighborhood, maybe in the Nervión area. Marta's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? But only if you're willing to help me manage both locations. I need someone I can trust completely, and you're that person. The proposal was exciting but also intimidating. Managing 2 stores would mean more responsibility, more pressure, more opportunities for success but also for mistakes. Can I think about it for a few days? Marta asked. Of course, it's a big decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. That night, Marta walked through the streets of her beloved Triana, reflecting on Alvaro's proposal. The neighborhood was alive with the sound of flamenco guitar coming from the small bars, and the air carried the familiar aroma of fried fish and manzanilla. She stopped on the banks of the Guadalquivir, and watched as the city lights were reflected in the dark waters of the river. Just a year and a half ago, she had been a woman filled with fear and insecurity. Now she was being offered the opportunity to help expand a business she had helped transform. The old Marta would have declined the offer out of fear of failure, but the new Marta understood that growth requires taking calculated risks, and that sometimes the greatest rewards come when we step outside our comfort zone. The next day she arrived at work with her decision made. I accept, she told Alvaro as soon as he walked through the door. Pau cuando condition. Volunteers que implement in the new store the same philosophy we've developed here. Treat every person with dignity and respect. Focus on building relationships instead of just making sales. And create a work environment where everyone feels valued. Alvaro extended his hand to shake on the deal. The following months were intense with planning and preparation. Marta divided her time between managing the original store and helping set up the new location. The process taught her new skills in project management, hiring and training, expanding her capabilities beyond customer service toward genuine business leadership. When the new store opened in October, the success was immediate. Word of mouth about the exceptional service at both locations spread throughout Sevilla, and soon there were customers traveling from across the city to experience what had become known as the special treatment of tradiciones andaluzas. The local press wrote articles about the business model that prioritized employee well-being and customer satisfaction over short-term profits, positioning the stores as an example of responsible capitalism. For Marta, the true reward came in smaller moments, training new employees and watching them gain confidence, receiving letters from customers expressing gratitude for services received, and seeing how her own team had evolved into a cohesive unit focused on common goals. One evening in December, as she locked up the original store after an especially busy day of holiday shopping, she found an envelope that had been slipped under the door. Inside was a handwritten note from a young woman. Dear Marta, 6 months ago I came to your store looking for an outfit for a job interview. I was very nervous and had very little money. You not only helped me find something perfect within my budget, but also gave me confidence with your kind words. I got the job, and now I'm engaged to a wonderful man I met through work. I wanted to thank you for being part of my journey toward happiness. Reading the note, Marta felt tears welling up in her eyes. These were the moments that made all the hard work worthwhile, knowing that her actions had made a real difference in someone's life. As she walked home through the decorated streets of Sevilla, past shop windows filled with Christmas displays and couples sharing romantic moments under the twinkling lights, Marta reflected on her journey from those dark days when she lived in fear of losing her job. She had learned that professional success comes not just from individual achievement, but from lifting others up along the way. Her story had become intertwined with people like Doña Esperanza, Rocío, Alvaro and countless customers whose lives had been touched in small but significant ways. Standing on the Triana Bridge, looking back at the city whose heart she had helped change with one kind interaction at a time, Marta understood that she had found her true calling, not just selling clothes but selling confidence, dignity and hope. The wind carried the scent of orange blossoms through the warm December night, and in the distance, she could hear someone playing classical guitar in one of the riverside cafes. Everything about this moment felt right, complete, like all the scattered pieces of her life had finally found their proper places. Have you ever lived through, or known someone who has gone through something similar? A person who, without realizing it, was being observed while demonstrating the best of themselves, only to discover later that that sincere kindness had completely changed their destiny? If this story has touched your heart, help me bring this message of hope to more people who need to remember that genuine goodness doesn't go unnoticed. Like this video and subscribe to the channel so that together we can prove that stories with happy endings are still possible when we treat others with the respect and dignity that we all deserve.
Was it her fault for putting so much heart into a job that apparently didn't value it? Was it naive to believe that loyalty and good treatment meant something in a world where only numbers on an Excel sheet mattered? Her savings would barely last 3 months without employment. And in Sevilla, finding work wasn't easy for a 28-year-old woman without university studies, whose only experience had been that store that now rejected her. Fear settled in her chest like an unwanted tenant. Fear of unpaid bills, fear of disappointing her widowed mother who lived in Córdoba, and who was proud of having a settled daughter in the Andalusian capital. Fear of starting over when she had gotten used to the security of the familiar. But Marta had something that she didn't even fully recognize herself, a silent dignity that refused to break. Every morning she got up, showered with the glycerin soap she bought at the Encarnacion market, put on her modest but always clean and ironed clothes, and walked through the cobblestone streets to the store. She greeted the neighbors who ran the other businesses, bought the newspaper at Don Rafael's kiosk, and entered her workplace as if it were the first day. The humiliation came drop by drop, in small doses that accumulated like slow poison. Carmen began contradicting her in front of customers, suggesting that she had made a mistake with some price or didn't know the product well. The other saleswomen, Loli and Mercedes, avoided teaming up with her for closing tasks, as if her supposed proximity to dismissal were contagious. One Thursday afternoon, while organizing a display of flamenco accessories near the window display, she overheard a conversation that broke her heart into small pieces. Loli and Mercedes were talking quietly next to the formal dress rack. "I don't know how she stands it," said Loli, a plump 45-year-old woman who had been working there 2 years less than Marta. "Knowing they're going to fire her, she comes every day as if nothing's happening. She has no dignity," Mercedes responded, adjusting her red plastic glasses with a disdainful gesture. "In her place I would have already looked for something else, always acting so indispensable only to get kicked out in the end just like anyone else. Maybe it's because she can't find anything else, with the crisis we have, and it's not like she has much education either." Marta continued folding silk scarves as if she hadn't heard anything, but each word stuck in her chest like pins. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed a gold-threaded embroidered shawl, and she had to blink several times to contain the tears that struggled to come out. That night, for the first time in 5 years, she didn't sleep well. She woke up at 4 in the morning with her heart racing, as if she had run a marathon in her dreams. She got up, prepared linden tea in the small kitchen that faced the interior courtyard of her building, and sat on the 2-seater sofa she had bought second-hand when she moved to Sevilla. Were her co-workers right? Was she naive for continuing to fight for a position she had already lost? Should she humiliate herself less and look for work elsewhere, even if that meant starting from scratch, with a lower salary and without the security of knowing the product and clientele? But when morning came, something inside her rebelled against that idea. It wasn't pride, nor stubborn obstinacy. It was something deeper. The conviction that her work had value, that her treatment of customers had made a real difference in the lives of many women, who had found in that store not just clothing, but understanding, patience, and respect. She remembered Doña Esperanza, an octogenarian widow who every month bought a new scarf, to brighten up my face a little bit. Marta always set aside the most beautiful ones for her, those that best matched her white hair and faded blue eyes. She also thought of Rocio, a young single mother who had arrived crying because she needed an elegant dress for her daughter's communion, but didn't have much money. Marta had found a way to give her a discount without Carmen finding out, and had also given her some costume jewelry earrings that matched. Those memories gave her strength to continue. If they were going to fire her, let it not be because she had let her guard down, or because she had lost the professionalism that had characterized her. If she had to leave, she would leave with her head high, knowing that she had given her all until the last day. The trial by fire came one April afternoon, when the spring air of Sevilla entered through the windows loaded with the scent of orange blossoms. A middle-aged man entered the store with determined steps but clothing that clashed with the environment. He wore worn jeans, a wrinkled plaid shirt, and sneakers that had seen better days. His slightly disheveled chestnut hair framed a hard-featured face that didn't smile. Carmen was in the warehouse checking inventory. Loli had gone out to eat, and Mercedes was helping a customer in the fitting room. Marta found herself alone at the counter when the man approached with an expression that promised nothing good. "Excuse me," he told her in a dry tone, without even greeting. I bought a shawl here for my mother a week ago, and it turns out it has a stain. I want you to exchange it for me. Marta looked up from the catalog she was reviewing, and gave him her professional smile. Of course, I'd be delighted to help you. Could you show me the shawl and the purchase receipt? The man took from a wrinkled plastic bag a cream-colored manila shawl with floral embroidery in pink and green tones. It was a beautiful piece, one of the most expensive in the store, but it indeed had a brown stain in one corner that looked like coffee or chocolate. I don't have the receipt, the man grunted. I threw it away without realizing, but I bought it here, that's for sure. Marta examined the garment carefully. She recognized the shawl. It was from a special collection they had received barely 2 weeks ago from a workshop of embroiderers in Jerez. They had only sold 2 pieces from that series, and she remembered the customers perfectly, an elderly lady who had bought it for her granddaughter, and a middle-aged woman who had paid with a credit card. Sir, I'm very sorry about what happened with the shawl, Marta told him with genuine concern. It's a very beautiful piece and I understand your disappointment. The problem is that without the purchase receipt it's very difficult to process the exchange, especially being a garment of this value. Are you telling me you're not going to exchange it? The man's voice rose a couple of tones, attracting the attention of other customers browsing among the garments. No, that's not it, Marta hastened to clarify, maintaining her calm despite feeling the growing tension. What I propose is that we review together to see if we can find some way to solve it. Do you remember approximately what day you bought it? Or if it was in the morning or afternoon? I don't have to remember those details, the man responded with evident irritation. I bought it here, period, and you have to exchange it or give me my money back. Marta felt the gaze of several customers on her. She knew this situation could escalate quickly and become an unpleasant scene that would damage the store's image. She also knew that technically she was right to ask for the receipt, but something in the man's expression suggested there was something more behind his anger. I understand your frustration, sir. No one should take home a defective garment, she told him in a soft but firm voice. Let me see what I can do for you. She approached the computer where they kept the sales record, and began reviewing the previous week's transactions. Meanwhile she continued conversing with the man to calm him. Is it a gift for your mother? She must be a woman with very good taste to choose such an elegant shawl. The man looked at her with some surprise, as if he didn't expect that reaction. Yes, it's for my mother. She loves these traditional things. How beautiful, Marta responded with sincerity. There's nothing like seeing the happy face of our mothers when we give them something special. My mother is also very fond of shawls and scarves. She says they're the most beautiful way to wear tradition. While she spoke, Marta had located in the system the 2 sales of shawls from that collection. One had been paid in cash for €320, the other with a card for €350. If the man was telling the truth, it had to correspond to one of those 2 sales. Look, sir, she told him, showing the computer screen. I've found the sales of shawls from this collection from last week. One was Tuesday morning, and another Friday afternoon. Does either of those dates sound familiar? The man frowned, as if he were making an effort to remember. It could have been Tuesday. Yes, I think it was in the morning. Marta nodded. Perfect. That sale was for €320 in cash. If you allow me, I'm going to process the exchange based on that information, because indeed the shawl has a stain that shouldn't be there. You're going to exchange it without a receipt? The man asked, and for the first time since he had entered, his voice sounded less aggressive. I'm going to make an exception, Marta responded with a smile, because I can see that you really bought the garment here, and because I understand how frustrating it must be to take a defective gift to your mother. She went to the display where they had the high-quality shawls, and selected 3 options similar to the one the man had brought. She spread them on the counter so he could see them well. These 3 are from the same collection and value. The first has gold embroidery on an ivory background, very elegant for special occasions. The second combines blues and silvers, perfect for ladies who prefer cooler tones. And this third one, she said, unfolding a spectacular piece, has embroidery in copper and orange tones that look beautiful with gray hair. The man examined the 3 options with an attention that surprised Marta. He took his time, touched the fabrics, observed the embroidery details, and finally pointed to the copper-toned shawl. This one is very beautiful. My mother has gray hair, and always says she likes to wear colors that bring life to her face. Excellent choice, Marta approved as she began carefully wrapping the shawl in tissue paper. Your mother is going to be delighted. It's a truly special piece, hand-embroidered by artisans from Jerez who have been dedicating themselves to this craft for generations. While she prepared the package, the man observed her with an expression that had completely changed. He no longer seemed like the aggressive customer who had entered minutes before. Listen, he suddenly told her. I've had a very complicated week and that's no excuse, but I wanted to apologize for how I arrived here. Marta looked up and smiled at him with genuine warmth. Don't worry, sir. We all have difficult days. What's important is that your mother is going to receive a beautiful gift and you're going to see her smile, which in the end is what matters. What's your name? The man asked as she handed him the bag with the shawl. Marta Hernandez. At your service. Marta, you've been very kind to me when I didn't deserve it. That's not something you see every day. Anyone would have done the same, she responded modestly. No, believe me, they wouldn't. I've been in many stores and I can assure you that not all employees have your patience and professionalism. The man stayed a moment longer, as if he wanted to say something more, but finally just thanked her again and left the store. Marta continued with her work, not knowing that she had just met Álvaro Mendoza, the new owner of Tradiciones Andaluzas, who had decided to visit his business incognito to find out firsthand how the store functioned and what type of employees he had. Álvaro had inherited the real estate investment business from his father, but after years dedicated solely to numbers and commercial transactions, he had felt the need to get involved in something more human, more connected with real people. When he found out that a traditional store with family history was for sale, he saw the opportunity to combine profitability with the preservation of a piece of Andalusian culture. But Álvaro was also a meticulous man who didn't make decisions without complete information. He had heard about the crisis the store was going through, about the need to reform the staff and modernize the systems. Carmen had sent him several reports in which she recommended firing the least productive employees and reducing costs by eliminating services she considered unnecessary. However, what he had just experienced with Marta didn't match at all the image they had painted for him. That saleswoman had not only resolved a complex problem without losing professionalism but had done so with a human warmth that had managed to transform his own state of mind. Álvaro had entered the store prepared to be the most difficult customer possible, to test the patience and competence of the staff. He had invented the story of the stained shawl to create a conflict situation with no apparent solution. His plan was to observe how the employees reacted under pressure, whether they maintained cordiality or lost their nerves. What he didn't expect was to encounter someone like Marta, who had not only maintained her calm but had found a creative solution to the problem, had shown genuine empathy, and had converted a potentially negative experience into something positive. During the following days, Álvaro couldn't get the image of that saleswoman who had treated him with respect and kindness even when he had behaved like a jerk out of his head. He decided to return to the store, but this time to observe without participating directly. He sat in a small cafe located right across from Tradiciones Andaluzas, from where he could see the interior of the store through the window display. For several hours he observed how the staff worked, how they treated different types of customers, and how they related to each other. What he saw was revealing. Carmen, the interim manager, was helpful and smiling with customers who appeared to have money, but was notably colder with those who seemed to have fewer economic resources. Loli and Mercedes worked mechanically, without showing real interest in helping customers find what they were looking for. Marta, on the contrary, trusted al customers con the same attention respect, regardless of their appearance or the amount of their purchase. Saw her help an elderly woman find the scarf that fit her limited budget, patiently explaining the differences between materials, and helping her choose the one that looked best on her. He also observed her serving a pair of foreign tourists who spoke basic Spanish, taking the time to explain the history and cultural significance of Manila shawls. But what caught his attention most was how the other employees treated Marta. There was a certain tension in the atmosphere, elastic glances, conversations that were abruptly cut off when she approached. It was evident that some type of internal conflict existed in the team. Álvaro decided he needed more information. He called Carmen and arranged a meeting at a nearby cafe to discuss the store's situation. Carmen arrived punctually, dressed in her best suit and with a smile that seemed forced. She ordered a cortado and sat with her back very straight as if she were in a job interview. "Mr. Mendoza, it's a pleasure to finally meet you," she told him with a honeyed voice. "I've prepared a detailed report on the current situation of the store, and my recommendations to improve profitability." Álvaro nodded and asked her to tell him her evaluation of the staff. Carmen didn't waste time getting to the point. "Well, we have some employees who have been here many years, and are very comfortable in their routines. Loli and Mercedes are hard workers, although they need supervision. But there's a special case I think you should know about." "What is it about?" "Marta Hernandez. She's the youngest saleswoman, but also the most problematic. She has a tendency to make decisions on her own without consulting me, makes unauthorized discounts to customers, and thinks she has more authority than she really has." Álvaro frowned. "What type of decisions does she make on her own? For example, last week she exchanged a shawl for a customer who didn't have a purchase receipt. That goes against all the return policy we've maintained for years. Each employee can't just do what seems right to them." "I understand," said Álvaro, although inside he felt confused. "And what do you think about her treatment of customers?" Carmen made a disgusted face. "She's too effusive. She gets too involved in customers' personal stories, wastes time chatting instead of focusing on selling. Businesses aren't for doing therapy, they're for generating income. And the other employees, What do they think of her? Well, it's complicated. Marta is very competitive. She always wants to look good and that creates a bad atmosphere. The others feel pressured by her attitude of wanting to constantly stand out. Alvaro made mental note of everything Carmen was telling him, but something didn't fit. The woman he had met didn't seem competitive or aggressive, but quite the opposite. What would be your recommendation regarding Marta? Carmen sighed as if it cost her to say what came next. Look, Mr. Mendoza, I don't enjoy making this type of recommendation, but I think Marta doesn't fit in the new store model you want to create. Her way of working is too old, too personal. We need more modern, more efficient employees. So you would recommend her dismissal? With pain in my heart, but yes, I think it would be best for everyone, including her. That way she'd have the opportunity to find a job that better adapts to her personality. Alvaro finished his coffee and said goodbye to Carmen with cold cordiality. He had many things to think about. During the trip back to his office in downtown Sevilla, he reflected on the conversation. There was something in Carmen's way of speaking that didn't inspire confidence. Her criticisms of Marta seemed more like a personal attack than an objective professional evaluation. He decided he needed a second opinion. Through a contact in the textile sector, he got the phone number of Doña Esperanza Villalobos, a regular customer of the store who was known in Sevilla's social circles for her frankness and good judgment. He called her that same afternoon and explained that he was the new owner of Tradiciones Andaluzas and would like to know her opinion about the service she received at the store. Doña Esperanza didn't think twice. Oh, Mr. Mendoza, I'm so glad to know there's a new owner. That store is a jewel, but things aren't going well there. In what sense? You see, I've been buying there for more than 10 years. I know all the staff and I can tell you that there's one employee who's worth all the others put together. Her name is Marta, and she's an angel of a person. Alvaro felt a flip in his stomach. Tell me about her. She's the only one who really cares about the customers. She always remembers what you like, never pressures you to buy something you don't need, and has infinite patience.
I'm an elderly woman, and sometimes it's hard for me to decide, but she's never made me feel like I'm bothering her. And what do you think of the rest of the staff? Well, I don't want to speak ill of anyone, but since Mr. Ruiz retired things have changed. Carmen, the one who's in charge now, is very, how should I put it, very self-interested. She only behaves well with customers who appear to have money, and I've noticed that she treats that poor Marta terribly. Terribly in what sense? She humiliates her in front of customers, contradicts her when she's explaining something, takes responsibilities away from her. It's very ugly to see. My granddaughter, who studied psychology, says it's workplace mobbing or something like that. Alvaro remained silent, processing the information. Are you still there, Mr. Mendoza? Yes, excuse me. It's just that you're telling me very important things. Look, I don't know what plans you have for the store, but if you fire Marta, you're going to lose the best employee you have. And you're also going to lose many customers, because that girl has a way of treating people that you don't see anywhere anymore. That night, Alvaro couldn't sleep. He stayed in the living room of his apartment in downtown Sevilla, drinking a glass of red wine and looking out the window at the city lights. Everything he had believed about the store's situation was crumbling. Carmen had lied to him, or at least, she had given him a very biased version of reality. Marta wasn't a problematic employee, but a victim of workplace harassment by the person who should have been protecting her. He decided he needed to see more. The next day he returned to the store, but this time with a different strategy. He stayed in the cafe across the street all morning, observing and taking notes. He saw Marta arrive punctually, cordially greet her coworkers, who barely returned her greeting, and immediately get to work. He saw her serve a young woman looking for a flamenco dress for her little daughter, spend an entire hour helping her find the perfect model, explaining how to care for the fabric and giving her some hair ribbons that matched. He also observed how Carmen arrived half an hour late, went to have breakfast with Mercedes, leaving Marta alone in the store during the busiest hour, and then proceeded to scold her for not having served a customer who had asked about a product that was sold out. Alvaro felt a mixture of indignation and admiration toward that woman who maintained her professionalism and smiled despite being treated unfairly. But what really decided him was what he saw at 2 in the afternoon. A middle-aged woman entered the store crying inconsolably. Carmen approached with an annoyed gesture, as if the tears were a personal inconvenience. "Ma'am, if you're not going to buy anything, I'd appreciate it if you didn't bother the other customers," Carmen told her with a coldness that froze Alvaro's blood. Marta, who was folding shawls at the other end of the store, approached immediately. "Please sit here," she told the woman, pointing to an upholstered chair they had for elderly customers. "What happened? How can I help you?" The woman, between sobs, explained that she had just found out that her husband had lost his job and that she would have to cancel the purchase of the flamenco dress she had ordered for her daughter's wedding. Carmen rolled her eyes and walked away, as if the problem wasn't hers. Marta, however, sat next to the woman and listened to her patiently. Then she brought her a glass of water from the small kitchen they had in the back room,
and explained that they could look for a solution. "Look, the dress you had chosen is beautiful, but I perfectly understand your situation. How would it be if we looked at other options that better fit your current budget?" During the next hour, Marta worked with the woman to find a dress that was beautiful, but more economical. She showed her models from previous seasons that had discounts, explained how she could complement a simpler dress with cheap accessories to make it look more elegant, and finally they found a solution that left the customer satisfied and grateful. When the woman left with her purchase, she hugged Marta and told her, "God bless you, daughter. You have saved my granddaughter's wedding." Alvaro had seen enough. He already knew what type of person Marta was, and what type of person Carmen was. He also knew what his decision was. But before acting, he decided to put Marta in an extreme situation to completely assure himself of her character. He would return to the store, this time as the most difficult customer who had ever set foot in that place. A week later, Alvaro returned to Tradiciones Andaluzas, disguised in even more neglected clothes than the previous time. He had let his beard grow for several days, wore a stained shirt and pants that seemed to have slept in the street.
This time his objective was clear: make Marta lose her temper. If he succeeded, it would mean that her previous kindness had been fake. If he didn't succeed, it would confirm what he already suspected. He had found an exceptional employee. He entered the store at 11 in the morning, when there was quite a bit of customer traffic. He headed directly toward Marta, ignoring Carmen, who approached intending to serve him. "You," he told Marta in a loud and unpleasant voice. "2 weeks ago you exchanged the shawl for me here, and it turns out it's also defective. This is inadmissible." Marta recognized him immediately, and smiled at him with genuine joy. "Good morning. I'm glad to see you again. How is your mother? Did she like the shawl you chose?" Marta's cordiality threw Alvaro off for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "No, don't change the subject. I'm telling you that the shawl you gave me is also defective. Don't you people in this store check the merchandise before selling it to people?" Several customers turned to look, and Carmen approached with an alarmed expression. "Sir, I beg you to lower your voice," Carmen told him in an authoritative tone. "You're bothering other customers." Marta intervened immediately. "Carmen, I'll handle the situation. Don't worry." Then she addressed Alvaro with the same patience she had shown the first time. "Of course we're going to review what happened. Could you show me what the problem is with the shawl?" Alvaro had prepared an elaborate story about imaginary stains and loose embroidery, but when he met those brown eyes that looked at him with sincere concern, he was speechless for a second. "It's just that it has a loose thread," he finally said, aware of how ridiculous his complaint sounded. "I understand," Marta responded without showing an ounce of impatience. "Loose threads can be very annoying and give a careless appearance. May I see it?" Alvaro pretended to look in a bag he was carrying empty. "No, I didn't bring it. It's at home." "No problem," Marta said immediately. "How about you come when it's convenient for you with the shawl, and we'll review it together. If it indeed has any defect, of course we'll exchange it for another. I don't have time to be coming here every other day," Alvaro grumbled, trying to maintain his role as a difficult customer, despite Marta's kindness disarming his entire strategy. "I understand perfectly," she responded. "Life is very complicated, and time is money. How about this option? I'll set aside several shawls from the same price range as the one you bought, so when you come you can choose the one you like best without wasting time." Alvaro realized he was losing the battle. No matter how much he tried to be unpleasant, Marta found a way to turn each complaint into an opportunity to help. "Look," he told her, changing strategy, "I'm just not used to these problems. In the stores where I usually shop," he stopped abruptly. Without realizing it, he had started speaking in English, and that could expose him as someone with more education and resources than he appeared to have. Marta didn't seem to give importance to the linguistic slip. "I understand this is frustrating for you, sir. No one wants to have to waste time solving problems that shouldn't exist. But I assure you we're going to find a way for your mother to have a perfect shawl." "Why are you so—" Alvaro stopped, not knowing how to finish the sentence. "So what?" Marta asked with genuine curiosity. "So patient with me. Most people would have told me to get lost by now." Marta smiled with a warmth that lit up her entire face. "Because I understand that when someone gets angry about something apparently small, there's usually something bigger behind it. And because my job isn't to judge people but to help them with whatever they need." Alvaro felt as if he had been punched in the stomach, but a punch of admiration and respect. That woman had just demonstrated a human quality that he had lost somewhere in his business career. He started to say, but realized he was about to break character. "I'll come back another day with the shawl," he muttered, and left the store with quick steps. That afternoon, Alvaro locked himself in his office and reviewed all the reports Carmen had sent him about Marta. He reread each criticism, each suggestion for dismissal, and realized he had been about to commit the biggest mistake of his business life. Carmen had not only lied about Marta, but had been systematically sabotaging the store's best employee, and he had been about to lend himself to that injustice.
He decided it was time to act, but he wanted to do it the right way. It wasn't enough to fire Carmen and promote Marta. He needed to repair the damage that had been done and make sure something like this never happened again. First, he scheduled individual meetings with all the employees to hear their versions of the facts.
Loli and Mercedes pressured by direct questions. Ended up admitting Carmen had influenced them against Marta, promising them better hours and conditions if they supported her management. Carmen told us that you wanted more modern employees, less sentimental. Loli confessed with evident discomfort, and Marta represented the old style that had to be changed. We have nothing personal against Marta, Mercedes added. She's a good co-worker and works well. But we were afraid of losing our jobs if we didn't follow Carmen's instructions. Álvaro then understood the magnitude of the problem. Carmen had created a toxic environment based on fear and manipulation, turning employees against each other to maintain her position of power. The meeting with Carmen was tense and revealing. When Álvaro explained that he had been personally observing the store and knew the real situation, Carmen tried to justify her actions. Mr. Mendoza, everything I did was thinking of the company's good, she defended herself. Marta is too soft, too emotional for the modern business world. Customers take advantage of her good faith. Customers adore her, Álvaro replied coldly. I've spoken with several of them and they've all told me the same thing, she's the best employee they've had. But the numbers show that Marta's sales are the highest in the store, and that customer satisfaction has dropped since you've been in charge. Carmen remained silent, realizing she had lost the game. Your last day will be Friday, Álvaro told her firmly. I'll pay you the severance you're entitled to, but I can't keep someone who harasses other employees in my company. Once Carmen's problem was resolved, Álvaro faced a more complex dilemma: how to reveal his true identity to Marta without making her feel deceived. He had been lying for weeks, pretending to be a difficult customer when he was actually her new boss. How could he explain that without seeming manipulative or disloyal? He decided that honesty was the only option, even if it was uncomfortable. Monday morning, after officially communicating to all employees that Carmen no longer worked at the store, he asked Marta to stay after business hours for a private conversation. Marta agreed, although with some concern. In recent weeks she had lived in a state of constant anxiety, expecting each day to be told of her dismissal. The fact that Carmen had disappeared without explanation didn't reassure her. Marta, I have to tell you something that's going to surprise you, Álvaro began when they were alone in the store. She looked at him with apprehension, preparing for the worst. Do you remember the unpleasant customer who came a few weeks ago about the stained shawl issue? Marta nodded. Yes, of course. A gentleman who was very angry but who finally calmed down. Why? Álvaro took a deep breath. That customer was me. Marta looked at him without understanding. Excuse me, I'm Álvaro Mendoza, the new owner of this store, and those 2 times I came as a difficult customer were a kind of test. I wanted to know how my employees worked without them knowing who I was. Marta was speechless. Her eyes opened wide as she processed the information. Then gradually, her expression changed from surprise to confusion, and from confusion to something like disappointment. Are you telling me you lied to me? She asked in a voice so low that Álvaro barely heard her. Yes, and I know it's wrong, but I needed to know the truth about what was happening here. Marta sat in the chair where elderly customers usually sat. Her hands trembled slightly while she assimilated what she had just heard. I worried about you, about your mother. I thought you were a person who needed help, and you helped me, more than you can imagine. But it was all a lie. Your anger, the story about your mother, the stained shawl was a lie. Yes, but my mother is real, and she's going to love the shawl you helped me choose. Marta looked at him with eyes that reflected a mixture of pain and disappointment. And now what? Do you have enough information to fire me? The question hit Álvaro like a slap. He realized to what extent this woman had suffered during the past weeks, living with the constant fear of dismissal. Marta, I'm not going to fire you. Quite the opposite. She looked up, confused. What I saw during those weeks convinced me that you are exactly the type of employee this store needs. Your way of treating customers, your patience, your creativity in solving problems. It's extraordinary. But Carmen no longer works here, and everything she told you about yourself was false. Marta remained silent for a long moment. Álvaro could see how she processed the information, how she tried to mentally reorganize everything that had happened in recent weeks. She finally asked, why did Carmen want to hurt me? Álvaro sighed. I don't know for certain. I think she felt threatened by your competence, by how well you did your job. Sometimes insecure people attack those they consider superior. I never wanted to compete with anyone, Marta murmured. I just wanted to do my job well, and you've done it wonderfully. That's why I want to offer you a position with greater responsibility. Marta looked at him with incredulity. How? I'd like you to be the new store manager,
with a salary increase of course, and with authority to make decisions about inventory, promotions and customer service. Tears began to flow from Marta's eyes, but this time they weren't tears of sadness, but of relief and gratitude. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Álvaro smiled. Because I have ambitious plans for this store, and I need someone who understands that commerce isn't just about selling things, but about connecting with people. Marta got up from the chair and approached where Álvaro was standing. Without warning, she gave him a hug that caught him completely off guard. Thank you, she whispered in his ear. You don't know what this means to me. Álvaro returned the embrace, feeling a satisfaction he had never experienced in any of his other business transactions. For the first time in a long time, he knew he had done the right thing. The following months were transformational for Tradiciones Andaluzas. Marta, with her new role as manager, implemented changes that improved both the work environment and the customer experience. She reorganized the inventory to better highlight the most special pieces, created a customer tracking system to remember their preferences, and established service protocols that guaranteed equal treatment for all customers, regardless of their appearance or budget. She also proposed to Álvaro the hiring of Rocío, the young single mother who had been a customer of the store, who had demonstrated excellent taste for combining garments and accessories. Rocío became a valuable who brought a fresh and modern perspective without losing respect for traditions. Loli and Mercedes, freed from the toxic environment Carmen had created, relaxed and began working as a team with Marta. They discovered it was much more pleasant to collaborate than compete, and that everyone benefited when the business went well. The store began to prosper in a way none of them had anticipated. Sales increased 30% in the first 6 months under Marta's management, but more important was the change in atmosphere. Customers noticed the difference immediately. Doña Esperanza, the octogenarian customer who had defended Marta to Álvaro, became a kind of informal ambassador for the store, recommending it to all her friends and acquaintances. Now it's really a pleasure to go shopping there, she told anyone who would listen. Marta is in her place, as she always should have been. The success wasn't based only on numbers. The store had become a place where women felt understood and valued, where they could find not just beautiful clothes but also advice, understanding, and sometimes, simply, a genuine smile on a difficult day. Marta had moved to a larger small apartment in the Triana neighborhood, from where she could walk to work crossing the bridge that bore her name. In the mornings while crossing the Guadalquivir and seeing the golden colors of the Sevillian dawn reflected in the waters, she allowed herself a moment of gratitude for how her life had changed. Her relationship with Álvaro had evolved from that initial moment of distrust to become a professional partnership based on mutual respect and shared objectives. He had learned from her the importance of human treatment in commerce. She had learned from him management and business planning skills. One October afternoon, while organizing the window display for the fall season, Marta received an unexpected visit. It was her mother, who had come from Córdoba to see the store her daughter had talked so much about. "Oh, my girl," she told her while observing the business with eyes bright with pride. "If your father could see you now, a manager, with important responsibilities, I always knew you'd go far." Marta hugged her mother, breathing the familiar scent of rosewater that always accompanied her. In that moment, surrounded by the business she had learned to love, and with the future full of possibilities, she realized she had found exactly where she belonged. Álvaro, who had witnessed the reunion from a distance, smiled to himself. He had bought that store, thinking about numbers and profitability, but had gained something much more valuable, the understanding that the best businesses are those that improve people's lives. 6 months later, Tradiciones Andaluzas won the Municipal Award for Commercial Excellence, recognition given each year to the establishment that best represented the values of Sevillian local commerce.